Oh, this is going well. Oh yeah, real long. Fucking peachy keen jelly bean. So anyways, let me just start over. Boom boom ba-dum ba-dum ba-bum bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-bum bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-bum bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-bum bum 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 bum. Boom ba-dum boom ba-dum 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 bum ba-dum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum 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 dum 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 boom dum dum dum. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-bow. Okay, so Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Conway have already joined us, so I don't need to sit here and say we're gonna wait for them for a hot second. But I will mention that too bad Lacey apparently won't be rejoining us, because it's very nice to have you here, Lacey, and we miss you, and we all just want to beat the shit out of everyone around you for not treating you right, because you're a beautiful person and you deserve the best. And if you're surrounded by assholes, I recommend moving. Because, yeah. Fuck the bozos. That's why. But anyways, I hope she sees this in the future. I'm gonna maybe send her a message on Facebook sometime soon and see if she actually gets it. Because around the time that I decided to get back on Twitter and Facebook, both started achieving new levels of fuckery. And not just in my case, just, so suddenly a bunch of universal fuckery began right after I got back on the platforms. No coincidence, eh? Must have just been a coincidence. Sorry. Just a coincidence. Anyways, it seems like we have achieved some stability here and are actually broadcasting. Right? Everybody back? Conway, you back? I typed this before I restarted my computer. What's it doing now? What's it doing now? Look at that. Look, why is it doing that now? Stop doing that. There's no reason. Oh! No reason for you to be fucking working on anything. What the hell was that? I clicked on the desktop and it just changed back to a normal pointer. Okay, I probably got some sort of rootkit. So anyways, I see 2 people watching, but I'm not sure if Conway has rejoined. Maybe I'll just go ahead and reshare the stream. Alright. Carlos. Conway, you here? Maybe I have my virus scan scheduled for 4 a.m. or something. I don't know. Conway's here. Good much. Company we're working being difficult. It's lower resolution now. Let's see if I can lower the CPU strength. Maybe that'll help. But apparently AVG found something it didn't like coming through here because it just disappeared. Oh. I got you. Really? Okay. Despite the fact that I could. Oh, look, now there's a fourth person. Despite the fact that I could previously broadcast with no difficulty with the PlayStation streaming.
They were set free.
I have now turned my PlayStation and my telephone off. And maybe that'll let me stream a little. Hold on 1 second, please. Alright. So anyways, everybody here, is it finally working? Lacey, are you back? I'm just talking about how much we missed you. Anyways. Alright, tired of my makeshift cigarette. I'm gonna light it, make a real one. Do a pretty good job conserving tobacco by re-rolling butts. Anyway. So, on the previous portion of the broadcast, before we were so rudely interrupted by the fuckery, oh no, it's Antiques Roadshow. Look away, look away. What the hell kind of clock is that? Fuck. Like, seriously, it's a fascinating clock. Wait, shit. Wait, no, show me the clock. Okay. Look at this thing. Trying, hold on, I'm trying. Can't pause live TV. Must click things fast enough. Turn, gain, down, just in time for her to not see the clock. Of course, of course. Ba-dum-bum, bam. And of course the next item is some horrible painting that shouldn't be worth anything. Really? Like, did a 3-year-old paint that? I hope so. $2,500. Okay. I'm going to just back away slowly before I die a little more inside. That's a fucking finger painting. Okay. No. Don't let me know that is $2,500. Oh my god. Oh my god. Just okay, I'm looking at you now. I'm looking at the screen here. Just gonna block my view of that now. So that's just horrible. Anyways, $2,500 for a 5-year-old's finger painting. Welcome to reality. And speaking of reality, what we were talking about before, was how the physical science of reality, the principles that affect change over a long term, they may in fact vary with things as simple as atmospheric pressure. Because when it comes to something like atmospheric pressure, you also have additional effects that must be considered in relation to that. Like, for instance, the magnetic field, the relativistic effects of gravity, the relativistic effects of pressure, the relative effects of dehydration. Which makes you wonder, where the fuck did camels come from? Anyways. So, if you can picture sort of a cataclysmic time between this time of extreme low pressure and high humidity and moderate temperatures, just everything's perfect as far as nature goes. And then suddenly something changes. Maybe a pre-flood civilization invented the Tesla coil. Okay? Picture this. Maybe they created a Tesla power grid. And that's what led to the flood. They activated the grid, and it electrified the atmosphere in a way that completely realigned the Earth's magnetic field. Wow. Is that what we were running from in the dream? Could it have been like ball lightning caused by them activating that grid? You know, I always think for more rational explanations of things, right? So in the reoccurring dream between Eden and the flood, okay? There's a time of like war that leads to like an extermination level event in this city where there's no roofs left, and all that's really left is like stone walls and rubble. But it doesn't necessarily look like a bunch of fire came through there and destroyed everything. Were the roofs made of metal and it was wood and stone that was left? I'm really not sure. You know, your mind constructs what you can't understand when you wake back up from a dream. Your mind is trying to construct things that you barely understand and remember to begin with while you dream. But in this dream, there's clearly a fear of the sky and some sort of orb-like things in the sky that you don't often see, but you're always afraid of. It seemed like there was sort of a fear of projectiles, like, you know, like when you try to maintain cover in a battlefield. Only we were trying to get lower. We were trying to get away from the sky itself, too. But whether or not that's related if you think about an original technological society, and if you think about the ancient engravings that we have of things that have been speculated as being possible Tesla coils, you can actually come up with a theory of why the flood fucking happened as a consequence of man's actions. Which kind of makes me feel better. It does seem a lot more like my style. You know, be careful what you wish for. So, yeah, actually, if you look at ICR.org and their explanation of nothing I'm really saying about that is original. Their take on uniformitarianism is basically the same as mine, only they're not flat earthers at all, so they never speculate as to which, definition of reality applies to what time period, or, etc. And of course, they've had no exposure to anything to do with the Horde. Really don't need that alarm. But anyways, yeah. They considered the time of Eden to be storm-free. Basically a rainforest, hiccups. Right when I took a deep breath, they showed a wolf on the TV howling. That was kind of fun. Excuse me. But this hyperhumidity rainforest-like environment would be more conducive to the aquatic development of mankind. Explain why we have the ability to swim and skin that's very porous and osmotic and things like that. Like, I'm sorry, when I look at my feet, size 14, I think that's some shit that's built for swimming. Now, you also consider gravity. If the atmospheric density was more dense, I keep on wanting to say more dense instead of less dense. Okay, you know, they said lower pressure, more moisture, but it seems to have worked in a different way, where the atmosphere was more dense, and not only did that make things bigger and stronger, but it made people who could elevate their spiritual frequency capable of flying. I mean, as silly as that sounds, it's like something that a lot of people remember in their dreams, and it's something I so clearly remember in my dreams. Before the period that, you know, where there's this city and things like that. I'm talking like before, when it's just like unsettled nature. I guess that would be like in the earliest time of the Garden of Eden. I don't know. Yeah, deforestation is another probable theory. If you consider the great trees that used to exist when this rainforest-like condition existed, and again, we all remember this time. I think you inherit the memory genetically. It's that foundational. Consider the amount of moisture trapped in those trees. If they were all harvested for lumber, or used for creating power, or burned for clearing, or burned in a war, or so on. You'd have an ever-increasing moisture situation. You'd have an ever-increasing like condensing of vegetation. You know, the vast release of carbon dioxide will be compensated by like overgrowth of vegetation in areas that still had vegetation. And as those trees would grow, they would become more dense. The surviving trees, they would absorb more carbon in their structures, but they wouldn't be able to absorb any more water. So that water would be in the clouds in the system. Now, initially you come to a mathematical impasse where the amount of tree, the amount of vegetation, simply cannot account for a worldwide flood. But what if you're talking about the extermination of the trees of the Garden of Eden? What if you're talking about the extermination of great trees that extended miles into the air? Then you have enough moisture. So then you'd go from the tropical mist forest to an actual tropical rainforest. You would begin to have thunderstorms before the clouds would part. The clouds form structures the way they do because of electrostatic energy. I know this because I know how to affect the clouds. I think I've demonstrated this. You want to see my face on them again? So I won't pull up the picture again because Russians and other hacker fuckery people have been using simple Java applets and images and GIFs to embed or activate rootkits and viruses and that kind of thing for 20 years. Remember that image with the flowers that they said? I don't know if y'all saw this. The news was reporting in regarding to the Robert Mueller indictments that the Russians had sent encoded messages through the use of publicly shared images. This publicly shared image of a bunch of different flowers that were all very brilliantly hued in little squares, right? And I remember my wife showing me this picture, and I remember thinking, that's got something coded in it. I couldn't perceive what, just my subconscious was just like, bam, 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 fuckery. Well, So back to the theorizing, I guess. Because I can't remember what the fuck I was just talking about. So they're building whatever they're building. They're building what? Condos? Something. Fuck it. And there has to be some ancient war in which these trees were purposely destroyed. And the children of these people knew to come and chop my tree down in, I think, the 1800s. I don't know. I know I started to wake up right after the Civil War. Kind of reminds me of the story of Ewok on Bleach, where it took him so many centuries to regain his consciousness, and then so many decades to regain his reason, and then so many years after that to regain his power. It's kind of how it feels like for me. But whether they were just building condos, there would have had to have been some sort of another catalyst that would have caused irreparable damage to the very foundations of the earth. Okay, we're talking about something that could literally reset the Earth's magnetic field by force. And if you look at, say, the ancient dispersion of pyramids, for instance, or ziggurats, better yet, yeah, burning it to make weapons, definitely. Burning it, yeah, for iron milling. God, they could go through a whole lot of wood like that, couldn't they? But yeah, and another thing, if they chop down or destroyed, set fire to, destroying the trees that were circulating the water of life and converting it to the water that can sustain it. Okay. If you remove the tree, what you have is a volcanic geyser. So then you have that moisture content, this moisture content, and then you have the possibility, just the possibility, of the invention of a small world but worldwide Tesla coil power transmission system. And again, in order to manufacture that, just like the weapons, you would need to burn more trees, chop down more trees. Even for the ziggurats that were made of stone, as opposed to wood and brass. Brass. Huh. Jubal. Instructor of every artificer in brass. Right. Ooh. That makes perfect sense. Ooh, did anybody else feel like a massive spiritual weight when I said Jubal and had him in context? Oh God, like the picture just became so complete too. Yeah, depending on the limestone. I'm familiar with the quartzite limestone. That's probably the oldest there is. That's the phosphorates and the silicates reacting with the calcium carbonate and the sulfide, and then creating under high pressure and presumably next to a steam vat or something, or closer to the bottom, experiencing heat, would form quartzite limestone. Funny, I never figured that out before, but I could just picture the entire process. But anyways, so the release of moisture from mankind's, or at least the Canaanites, clearing of land, and brass and iron making, and possibly a war against Eden, and possibly the purposeful destruction of the great trees, and possible creation of a Tesla coil system would have offset the balance of the atmosphere and at the same time caused the magnetic field of the Earth to become active, basically. There is literally no way to extrapolate from its present state what it might have been before this happened, if this happened. It'd be interesting to see what a computer model would do with that. But I can't. Like, it doesn't seem like there was anything back then. Oh, exactly. If the atmosphere is conductive, okay, and an atmosphere like we're talking about would have been conductive enough. But then that moisture, as soon as they activated the grid, would have been locked up into basically confinement beams between each grid. Like it would just form a massive grid of electrically charged linear cloud, practically. That would have been temporarily stable if not for the effect on the magnetic field. Which would have then caused, more than likely, serious earthquakes, causing the ziggurats to collapse, causing the field to collapse. But then at this point, you have the jump start required for the spinning of the brine, or the spinning of the center of the earth against the brine. Which might have been their objective to begin with. Because that, in effect, would allow the plasma balls that formed to enter a circular orbit superconductively because of the what's the Meissner effect. And also could have dragged India all the way into where it was. Let's make my brain hurt. I already had a headache. A gateway to another dimension isn't far off, considering how much everything changed because of it. And when you think about it, they caused the destruction of all but 12 people. What? So not only were we superhuman before then because we were living in an environment that was conducive to, superiority, but then We went from being a species capable of producing multiple genetic forms to having a very limited gene pool, at which time the initial degradation started becoming apparent in the reduction of our lifespan. The reduction of our spiritual intelligence, and the elimination of our ability to produce conditionally variant offspring. There are some animals in nature who seem to be able to slightly modify their offspring according to their environments. And it seems that, species adaptation can, in these cases and these species, be construed as consciously guided. Or it could be the result of, what embryo is successful in a particular environment. But over time, this ability was lost in humans. And no matter where you went, your offspring would just look like you. It used to be human offspring came out a lot like puppies and kittens and other large pack animals. If you notice something about small mammalian populations that have fur, their offspring tends to come out all the same color. But then when you take large populations like mountain lions, for instance, you get the black panther. You've got black jaguars. Humans used to be much the same way. And after the flood, because of the limited gene pool, because of the degradation of the environment and the degradation of the offspring, you initially had variation, but and I still haven't traced down this, you still have the sons of Cain. And you would have their variation, their mutations, their deformities, their attempts to mitigate that deformity. Pretty much the beginning of kidnapping for breeding purposes started right after the flood. Oh yeah, don't forget the Pink Panther. Alright. Well, anyways. I think that about covers it, folks. black holes with strange beings coming out of them, moving like electric bolts, abducting people or consuming them. It's not exactly clear. Huh. Remind me if I forget to talk about the possibility of a Gabriel UFO type thing being involved in 9/11. Because of the, the dark orb video. Anyways, let's just say I don't think it was the CIA. Anyways, so that's going to be all for now. I got to go. Thanks for watching. Good to see you, Joey. And thanks for hanging out, Mr. Conway, Mr. Rodriguez, and Miss Lacey. Hope to see y'all soon. Y'all take it easy, but don't take it all. Peace.
I can't take it, baby. I can't take it no more.